Hi everyone. So my name is Prasun, and before I start, I just want to share a small story. So there is this girl Surekha. She's one of the millions of people who stay in the slum in Bombay, and in this case, a very small 5 feet by 6 feet room, which she shares with mother and a sister. An average day in the life of Surekha goes like this. Waking up at 5 in the morning, cleaning the house, then preparing for school, finishing all the homework, doing all the assessments, finishing up the storybook that she was supposed to read. This goes on till about 6 in the morning, and she wakes up the rest of the family, makes tea for them, then dresses up the younger sibling, gets her ready for school, and they come to school at 7. School ends at 12:30 for most of the students. Surekha stays back till about 2 o'clock for extra classes. At noon, she goes back home, makes lunch, feeds the younger sibling, makes sure she's not up to sleep, and goes off to make bangles at a factory. She works there for 4 hours, where she's paid 6 rupees an hour. At about 7:30, she goes to a nearby restaurant where she washes dishes for a living. That goes on till about 10:30 in the night. They don't pay her there, but they give her food. That is when she goes back home and goes off to sleep. Surekha is all of 8 years old, and I'm very, very honored to have her in my class. I think, so a little bit of background about me. I teach in a municipal school in Bombay. I teach grade 2. I have about 60 children in my class. And the kind of stories that my children have, I can go on for days. But what I'll talk about is the importance of primary school education and how India as a country is failing to implement it. I don't think we can stress on education enough. I think all of us here in this auditorium are here only and only because we've been very privileged to have a very good education. So when I started working with my organization Teach for India, I realized that going into the slums, a lot of people in the community did not believe that India would be a superpower by the year 2020. That India, with a population of 1.2 billion people, would actually rule the world. For them, every day was a survival test. So, in the midst of all this, there are stories like that of Surekha, people who work 18 hours a day to sustain themselves and their families, and still manage to go to school, only in the hope that one day she will get to a nice college. She will get a job that will sustain her and her family. So working in Bombay, I realized that primary school education in India is a mess. There are certain problems and symptoms. So the symptoms and the causes that actually makes this mess humongous are as follows. So our classrooms are understaffed. For a developing country like India, the actual teacher-student ratio should be around 1:30. In developed countries, it's around 1:15. Most of the IB schools that I've been to in Bombay, they all have teacher-student ratios in 1:12, 1:15. In India, the ratio is somewhere around 1:65. On an average, it's been proven in studies that if you're a teacher, it's only the first 4 rows of your class that you can properly engage. The other children just zone out. That happens to each one of you, I'm sure. You being in an engineering college, you all understand it's only the first 4 rows that are actually listening to the teacher. The other 4 rows are zoned out. Now, in spite of such a bad teacher-student ratio, we still have a huge, huge shortage of teachers. Now, one in any four of the teachers in any day, in any given school would be absent. I face that. I teach grade 2 now. My children last year did not have a teacher for 6 months because she was off on a maternity leave. So, such rampant absenteeism is very, very present. Our teachers could be more engaged. Of the teachers who are there in school, only 50% are generally in class teaching. The remaining of the time they spend in the staff room, chit-chatting with the other teachers, maybe outside school, finishing off a sabzi bazaar. The third, our school dropout rate. India, as of now, has about 350 million children who should be in primary school, out of which 50 million children have never seen a school. Out of the remaining 300 million children that are there, that's actually more than the population of the USA. So out of the remaining 300 million children, 53% drop out by the time they reach class 8. Another 50% of the remaining drop out before they go into class 11. That's a whopping 75% of our country's children who drop out before class 10. A huge percentage of people also drop out before they go to college and during college. So in the end, we generally have a percentage of around 12 to 13% of Indian students who actually finish college. And we're not talking about quality education here, we're just talking about education. The last thing, for a country so big, facing such a big crisis, our GDP spend is still very, very low. It's 3.3% against something like 6% that is there in other countries. So, while I would be talking, I do have a couple of snapshots from my school and my class, and I would be running you through them as well. So, I identified the main problem that is there, and I will be telling you about it. So in Bombay, as you can see, there are about 1600 public and aided schools, whereas there are only 49 intermediate schools. What that effectively means is that after students pass out of class 8, there are 1600 schools, and there are only 49 secondary schools that cater to this. So it's only for every 32 primary schools, there is only one secondary school. The remaining of the children cannot afford to go to a private school. The rest drop out. And even in a place like Bombay, where primary school enrollment is as high as 97%, the dropout rate at the end of class 8 is as high as 70%. So Bombay's public schools educate the most marginalized children. My children come from families that make less than 2,500 rupees a month. In a city that is as expensive as Bombay, you're hardly left with anything at the end of the month. So most of the families that my children come from are people who work as domestic help, construction workers, daily wage workers, some who work as contract laborers, auto rickshaw drivers, maids, and so on. So this is actually Ravina. She is 6.5 years old. She's in grade 2. She's never been to school before till grade 2. She's never been to a primary school, a Balwadi, which is KG, senior KG, and so on. She's got a sibling in class 2 for which she was directly admitted to class 2. This was the first day she wrote her name, and it was a big day for her. She wanted to take a picture. So, despite very high enrollment rates in Bombay, that's around a whopping 97%, children in public schools exhibit a very low level of learning. You would be surprised to know that around 60% of the children in grade 4 cannot read or write few simple sentences. So when I walked into my class, in June last year, and that was my first day of teaching, and I had planned out a lot of activities. So I go up to the board and I write my family, and I ask them to draw people in the family. And I see blank faces staring at me, 60 blank faces. And I thought maybe okay, they can't draw. So I asked them to just do anything. Just tell me the number of people you have in the family. And I realized after a while that out of the 60 children, only 3 children could recognize the letters of the English alphabet. A couple of days later I realized only 15 of the 60 children could recognize numbers up to 10. And they are in grade 2. So effectively they are at a pre-KG level. And they have been promoted to grade 2. I slowly realized that there are children in my school in class 6 who still can't read. And I'm talking about very, very simple words. 4-letter words. So, that's one very big problem. Now, most of the people in Bombay that come to these public schools actually come from slums and from pavements, or they stay on the side of the railway lines. And they suffer from the lowest literacy rates. There are a lot of problems. There are a lot of reasons for that. Most of them are first generation learners. Maybe the first person in the entire family who has come to a school. Most of them come from a migrant population. They've just arrived in Bombay, coming from a village. They have no idea how, most of them can't even speak Hindi or Marathi. And to top it all, there is a lot of abuse in the system. When you're staying in very cramped quarters with thousands of other people, a lot of things happen. There is no space. You have no privacy. There is a lot of mental, there is a lot of physical abuse, a lot of mental abuse, and in some cases I've encountered cases of sexual abuse within the children. And to top it all, you don't know whether you're going to have a full meal at night. Education at that point of time becomes a luxury. So another problem is the MCGM structure. There are about 1700 schools but only 49 secondary schools. So for 60% of Bombay's population that gets free education till class 8, there's only 3.5% secondary schools that offer free education. The remaining children in Bombay drop out. And that is a very, very grim situation. Because even the lowest private schools generally charge fees of around 300 rupees for classes 9, 10 and so on, which is a huge percentage of their monthly income. So this is actually a picture of an art festival that we have done, where we got the entire school to make things. As you can see, they've gotten colored bottles, we've designed them, they've made some handicrafts on using handkerchiefs, paper bags, and a lot of other stuff. And at the end of the day, you would think it's okay. It's English medium, it's not their language, it's an alien language for them. Maybe vernacular language is way better. Most probably, if I teach them in Hindi or in Marathi, they would be doing better. But we've taken studies of these mediums as well, and the data is equally bad. As you can see, around 40% of children in Hindi and Urdu mediums still can't read or write in the 4th standard. And that is just not because of low learning levels or anything, it's completely because of teacher apathy. The teachers are just not there, and even if they are there, they're not paying attention. So, when I joined my fellowship, and I realized that such big problems are there, so we basically charted a flow that we would use, a solution that we have to come up with. And the first thing that we realized that we have to figure out what to do. The how comes later on. The first thing to do is that non-profits like Teach for India, like Akanksha, and the other thousands of non-profits that are there in Bombay, one of the best ways to get involved is to be a part of the MCGM system itself. You cannot be in the community and teach them about and teach them in the community, that doesn't help them a lot. If you're a part of the school system, and if you're getting teachers into the school system, the kind of impact that you can have is huge. So this is something that children were made using soap and pins. And we actually sold this off. We had a small auction at Hard Rock Cafe in Bombay, where we sold off these things, and it was a huge confidence booster for the kids. And partnerships between the non-profits and MCGM are now more focused in the school, the education, rather than in being in the community where they take evening classes and so on and so forth. The third thing is the outsourcing of schools to non-profit organizations. So if there is a school which has a huge shortage of teachers, what we can do is we can put in teachers into that school and put them in classrooms where they teach full time. So people like me go into a classroom which does not have a teacher and I teach them full time. That not only takes care of these children's issues which they are facing, but also helps reduce the load on MCGM. The next thing is head teacher, which is the HM, and teacher empowerment. So these are a couple of, this is a result from a couple of studies that were undertaken by McKinsey and ICICI. That if you empower a teacher and you put in a top performing head teacher in a school, the performance of the students actually goes up by 20 percentile points over a period of 1 year, which is a huge, huge jump. Another result that we found was that obviously the quality of education that is being imparted in the classes cannot exceed the quality of the teachers themselves. If you get a very good teacher in a class, the kind of impact that he or she can make can give you a difference of 53 percentile points over a period of 3 years. So head teacher capacity building and teacher training support are two of the most important things that we are looking at. I will leave my school after 2 years, but to make a sustainable and a scalable impact, what I really need to do is bring about a mindset change within the teachers and the HMs, that the job that we've set about to do can be done, and it's very much possible. So the next thing is, how do we do it? And this is where people like me come in, and this is what we're going to basically talk about in the next couple of minutes. So this is actually the event at Hard Rock Cafe where my children came in and they set up their small stalls and they sold off things that they had made. The first and primary thing is curriculum and pedagogy. Now curriculum in India, as we all know, is archaic. It's based on a set of ideas that people had 50 years ago. It's completely based on rote learning. There is hardly any application that is involved. And pedagogy is one more thing that people don't look into in schools these days. So there's the teacher who comes in, writes a couple of answers on the board and asks the children to mug it up and reproduce in the paper the next day. You have to understand that as a person, different people learn in different ways. Some people are audio learners, some people are visual learners, some people have to do it, like kinesthetic learners. So to actually get to every child in the class, you have to teach in such a way that every child is engaged. So this is an example of group work where we get one strong child, two average children and one weak child to sit together. The strong child leads the entire discussion and the other three are learning from him. The next thing is teacher training and support. Teachers in the MCGM system, the school system, have been around for 15-20 odd years, and the kind of mindsets that they bring in with themselves is that in bachon mein kuch nahi hoga. The first thing that you realize once you walk into a BMC school is that the teachers have given up. They say they are not here for education, they are just here for the midday meal, they are here for the free things that the BMC gives them. And they themselves don't believe in the work they are doing. So teacher training, changing their mindsets, making them believe that yes, you can do it and this is a job that can be done. This is the first and primary thing. The second thing is to equip them with new skills, new technologies, new ideas that have come in the field of education since the time they have passed out of their BEd. And make them aware of the fact that once you start using these things, classroom will become a better place, not just for themselves but for the children as well. The second thing is teacher and student assessments. Now, assessments have to be designed in such a way that they don't promote rote learning. A lot of children in my school can subtract 2 from 4, but a lot of them can't figure out the length of a pencil when it is kept in the middle of a scale. Then they get confused. So application of knowledge is something that you have to test. The second thing is teacher assessments. A teacher should be promoted, given perks, so on and so forth, given the performance of his or her class. The last thing is in-school remedial classes. Now, a lot of children, not every child in your class will have the same learning levels. I have 60 children and I have about 4 different learning levels in my class. There are children who are still struggling with 3-letter words and basic addition and subtraction. And I have children who are reading at 120 words a minute and can multiply 5 digits into 2 digits within 30 seconds. So how do I cater to both kinds of students in the same class? It's using differentiation where you're teaching the same thing using different ways, or you take a lot of in-school remedial classes. That is where you teach the weak students the topics that you will be teaching or the topics you have taught and they've not understood. So that when you're actually doing it in class, it becomes really, really easy for them. So, yeah, education, the next best thing to a record deal. It assures you of a job, assures you of a better life. The final thing is, what can you do? I don't think 18 minutes, 20 minutes is doing justice to the kind of problem that we have at hand. What you as individuals can do now is find out how you can help someone. You don't necessarily have to go to a school and teach. What you can do is find out about the schools in your areas, figure out the problems that are there, go talk to the people. If they're not listening, take the media in. Make yourselves more aware, make yourselves more open. Instead of just staying in a cocoon where I'm in PC Chandigarh, I will get a job. So just be aware of certain things. Lastly, if not anything else, just start respecting the teachers you've had and appreciate the kind of life that you've had till now. Thank you.